Alright, we're talking Garou in this one and how powerful he currently is in the manga, as well as what's going on with him. So, we recently saw him on the cover page of chapter 120, and that's what mainly inspired me to want to make this video. He appeared to look the same way he did in chapter 115, which appears to be his new form, I suppose. And this new version shows Garou's clothes have completely fused with his flesh at this point. And this began in chapter 89 after Garou's death revival power boost from his encounter with Royal Ripper and Bug God. And in that chapter, Garou says his clothes completely stuck to his wounds and that he can't separate them, and they've hardened and completely stuck together. So what we're looking at here is Garou's pseudo-monsterfied body, or half-monster body, as Garou classifies him in chapter 92. Another thing to notice is Garou's increased regeneration ability. This was also first revealed in chapter 89, where his slash wounds from Royal Ripper had healed after he woke up. But now we notice the hole left in his abdomen from Orochi's horn, that is healed as well. And he received that in his fight with him in chapter 92. But according to Murata, this is because he's now able to absorb black matter from the air to close his wounds, which seems to be a pretty significant upgrade, since before it was stated that his clothes seemed to have aided him in his original regeneration, and those were just cuts after all. But now we're looking at like a friggin' gaping hole closing. Another thing to notice is Garou's eyes. They both are completely void now, and the color appears to be white, but given that it's a manga, it's really hard to tell if that's actually the case, or they could both be completely red now. And I say that because Garou's initial monstrification crossover began in his fight with Genos. It was signified when his right eye turned red, mid-fight out of nowhere. But now, in chapter 115, we see both of his eyes are the same. There's no real difference between them. And I thought maybe it was just for that chapter, since he had just woke up. I thought it was just for the effect, kind of like him being in a feral state after being rebooted or whatever. But now we see it's on the cover page of chapter 120 as well. So this could just be how he looks from now on. Meaning, of course, he is even closer to being a monster than he ever has been. Now, let's further explain this. So, Garou also says in chapter 92 that Garou had broke through another wall after surviving his near-death encounter with Royal Ripper. And as mentioned earlier, we can assume the first wall was broken in his fight with Genos and Bang and Bomb. And breaking through the wall is basically the revival from death power boost dynamic, aka the Zenkai boost in DBZ, and I call it that occasionally on the channel. To fully explain it, Garou said that she found that it's possible to reach the next stage of power if one conquers death, and if the process is repeated, you end up with explosive growth. And this is exactly how Orochi became as powerful as he was. And it's this that's gonna let us figure out how strong Garou is right now. So during his fight with Genos, Bang and Bomb, it's debatable how strong he was exactly. He was still in his hero hunter mode, but given that we saw the first glimpse of him monsterfying, we can assume that he was probably slightly stronger than that. So high demon, above demon territory, somewhere around there. It's, like I said, it's debatable. But also considering that after that encounter, his strikes couldn't really hurt Bug God, who was a definitive demon. It's likely he wasn't a dragon yet. But after his Zenkai boost from that fight, he most certainly became a dragon. I mean, if one-shotting Royal Ripper wasn't enough to show us the stark contrast between those two versions, Garou, straight up says that he's a dragon in chapter 91. Now, take that for what you will, considering what he said before that with disaster levels aren't reliable and everything, but I feel as though this was probably more so a narration rather than just throwaway dialogue. And we also see that he's able to survive Overgrown Rover and Orochi's blasts. It's also implied that he just straight up becomes more powerful mid-fight against Orochi, like when Garou says he's getting faster, but this dynamic to Garou is later explained in the webcomic, so I can't really get into that now, but just so taking a guess, by the time Orochi defeats Garou, when he throws him into the wall, he could be considered a mid-dragon around that point, right? I mean, he's fast enough to outrun Orochi's horns, which are pretty fast, strong enough to initially block Orochi's punch, which is incredible if you just look at that panel and you see the size difference and how much power could be behind that thing, and durable enough to survive those beams, of course, which not even Garou would have been able to survive them without a barrier. And I think those feats are pretty telling of at least a mid-dragon. So with this new Garou, we're only going up from there. Now, Garou purposely told Orochi to not kill Garou since she wanted to brainwash him into becoming like her next Monster King or whatever. But given that she is the expert on the Zenkai boost dynamic, it's very likely that she wanted Orochi to push him to the brink of death. So, Garou could revive from that and achieve another Zenkai boost. Because after Orochi does like his insane water stream rock smashing fist to Garou, he blasted him into that wall. And he's essentially close to death than he's ever been at that point. At least it looks like he was. Which means he's probably broke through another wall, given what Garou said about repeating the process gives explosive growth. And that's likely what's happening here. So I'm guessing this version of Garou is just a high dragon right now. We only really have one feat of his to go off of so far, but if we analyze it, it might show us that that's probably true. So he pieces up Puri Prisoner in chapter 115 with a quick water stream, and it completely wrecks him. Like, Prisoner even states that he shielded himself immediately with his bristle armor and still received severe injuries and couldn't even get up. So if we compare this to Prisoner's encounter with Neon in chapter 105, then we see the difference. So Prisoner gets hit by a feline retribution, which we later saw was a pretty powerful attack, and this definitely messes him up. But he still was able to remain standing after it, and we see the difference as he falls to the ground after getting hit by Garou. And after this, he didn't really even have the bristle armor when he took the initial feline retribution. He gained that afterwards. And considering that the consensus seems to think that Neon is a mid-dragon, more or less, given the difference between these two sequences, how he didn't have the bristle armor when he took the feline retribution, was still standing, but then he did have the bristle armor, and he was just completely wrecked, couldn't even move after just one single water stream. I think it's fair to say that Garou is like an official high dragon right now. And like I said before, we're only going up from where he was against Orochi, which might have been mid-dragon. Even if he was low dragon, he's probably fringe high dragon right now if you don't want to accept that he was at that state of power. Regardless, he's a savage beast right now. So now at this point, I just want to go into webcomic spoilers for a little bit, talking about what Garou is going to be doing after his encounter with Puri Prisoner. So if you don't want to know what's going to happen, I suggest you check out now. But right now, I just want to talk about what's happening after he's encountering Puri Prisoner, because this is also going to give us some insight into how powerful he is right now, and I think proves that he's pretty much a high dragon at this point of the story, after he breaks through this next wall after his encounter with Orochi. So he encounters Darkshine, and as we know, Darkshine more or less is a consensus high dragon. And given that he was able to defeat Carnage Kabuto in Carnage mode by himself in the VGS, going to his full power for 15 minutes, that can give us some insight into where Garou is right now. So Garou wrecks Darkshine for the most part, at least in the webcomic. Like, Darkshine only lands one shot on Garou, and it's like that big tackle thing that he does, and it like breaks Garou's ribs and it completely wrecks him. But the fact that Garou gets up after this and then goes on to have even better of a performance is also showing us how far Garou's durability has come. So I'm sure that he's going to mess up Garou a lot more. And given that Darkshine appears to be much stronger in the manga than what it does in the webcomic, I'm sure that it will be more than a tackle, or at least I hope that it is. But nonetheless, Garou defeats Darkshine using the Crossfang Dragon Slayer Fist, which is a combination of the Water Stream and the Whirlwind Iron Cutting Fist, and he just wrecks him completely, makes him quit mentally. But this also goes into what I was talking about earlier, as where Garou was increasing in strength during his fight with Orochi, and that's because it's explained during this sequence. It says that only when fighting a stronger opponent who corners him, he can find his true strength and grow. Very broken ability, but we were seeing it definitely against Genos Bang and Bomb. We saw it, of course, against Orochi. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. given that Garou can destroy Darkshine and take his best shots here, I think that's pretty indicative of a high dragon. You know, also if we're cross-analyzing it back to Carnage Mode, Carnage Kabuto. So that's pretty much it for the video today, guys. Let me know what you thought about this one. Do you think Garou is a high dragon right now, at least up until, you know, when he goes against Golden S and everything that happens after that point? But let me know. And if you liked it, please give it a like. I also have a Patreon. It gives you access to a weekly Q&A. And if you haven't already, please subscribe as well. Have a great